This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Got a car to sell but no time to waste? Hop on to Carvana.com to get a real offer for your car in seconds. All you have to do is enter your license plate, answer a few quick questions, and if you accept the offer, Carvana will pay you as soon as you hand the keys over. They even offer same-day pickup in many cities. Save your time, score some cash, and sell your car the convenient way to Carvana. Pickup times vary. Fees may apply.
Hi, welcome to IKEA.
This is my college campus.
Correct, but I see you're on IKEA.com ordering some college items.
My daughter's room is pretty bare. We need a lamp, some comfy pillows, her favorite stuffy.
Dad!
With pickup options, we've got what you need to conveniently order IKEA. Literally anywhere.
Sweet. More time for gaming.
And studying. Wait, where are you going now?
Have to show the ultimate Frisbee team how easy it is to order from IKEA. Get IKEA whenever, wherever, however you want. Choose from thousands of pickup locations, affordable delivery options, and more.
Hey, let's talk about your expense report.
I didn't submit an expense report.
You will. Custom saddles and dog training services are not within policy.
What are you talking about?
SAP Concur uses advanced AI to audit and automatically detect out-of-policy expenses. It's the breakthrough I needed to focus more on our future.
These are my future expenses?
Yes, and self-defense classes are out of policy.
I'll need self-defense classes?
You will.
For what?
It's a big dog.
SAP Concur helps your business move forward faster. Learn more at concur.com. EVO.
This series contains adult language and depictions of graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised.
On December 7th, 1974, iconic sportscaster Howard Cosell interviews ex-Beatle John Lennon during halftime on ABC's Monday Night Football.
Now I've got a most familiar figure and face for all of you across the country here with me now. Of the original Beatles, Mr. John Lennon.
Hello,
John,
Howard.
nice to see you, John.
Nice
Want
to
to
be
move
here.
that up just a little closer?
How are you?
What's been your view of this American professional football scene?
It's an amazing event and sight. It makes rock concerts look like tea parties. But I must say, the first thing I heard when I got in was I'm playing a Beatles tune yesterday, which cheered me up no end.
Will the Beatles ever reunite?
You never know. You never know. I mean, it's always in the wind. If it looked like this, it might be worth doing, right?
Exactly 6 years and 1 day after that interview.
It was unseasonably warm for December in New York that night. Lennon and his wife, Yoko Ono, were returning home from the Hit Factory recording studio, where John had just finished recording on Yoko's new record.
Their limousine pulled up at the Dakota Apartments on the Upper West Side of Manhattan around 10:45 p.m. Waiting for them outside was a smattering of the usual fans hoping to get a glimpse of the former Beatle. Yoko got out of the car first and walked quickly towards the building. Lennon followed. Lennon is shot 5 times in the back.
He's mortally wounded. Minutes later, when the police arrive, they find the shooter still at the scene, calmly reading J.D. Salinger's Catcher in the Rye.
Meanwhile, 1,200 miles away, Cosell was announcing another Monday Night Football game, this one between the New England Patriots and the Miami Dolphins, when suddenly, late in the fourth quarter.
Timeout is called. 3 seconds remaining. John Smith is on the line, and I don't care what's on the line, Howard, you have got to say what we know in the booth.
Yes, we have to say it. Remember, this is just a football game, no matter who wins or loses. An unspeakable tragedy confirmed to us by ABC News in New York City. John Lennon, outside of his apartment building on the west side of New York City, the most famous perhaps of all of the Beatles, shot twice in the back, rushed to Roosevelt Hospital, dead on arrival.
Hi, I'm Bruce.
And I'm Jeff. Welcome to Taboo Treasures, a weekly podcast that explores the human obsession with gathering and collecting not just objects of value, but objects of extreme rarity and infamy.
Today's episode, Catcher in the Rye. So, Jeff, you remember where you were the night John Lennon died?
Oh, of course. I was actually, I just moved to L.A. a few months before. I was in a little apartment on Poinsettia Place in Hollywood.
California, yeah.
Yeah, in California. And I was a massive Dolphins fan, so I'm watching this game, and it was between the Dolphins and the Patriots. I'll never forget, obviously.
Right.
When Cosell broke in. It was horrifying. You weren't watching the game, right?
No, I was at a Police concert in Fort Lauderdale. It's about 4 years before I met you, 84. And we left the concert probably around 11:30. Me and my girlfriend get in the car, turn on the radio because you want to hear, any other Police songs or whatever, because WSHE would play stuff.
Right.
And they broke in and said John Lennon was shot. Now, they didn't say he was dead, but he was shot, and I was just completely, what the fuck? And then maybe 10 minutes later, they said he was dead.
Yeah, I heard, when we were doing research for this, we found all that footage of them deciding behind the scenes.
Yeah, with Cosell and the other guys.
Yeah, and I think Frank Gifford was involved, and they were all talking about whether or not they should say anything.
Who's going to say it, yeah.
And so by the time I heard it, that was the announcement that you just mentioned at the top of the podcast, where Cosell broke that news. And you could hear they were really good friends, Cosell and Lennon. Oh, and it was just, it was so... anybody who remembers that moment.
Yeah, it's one of those things in life, you remember where you were when it happened.
Well, but to be fair, it wasn't, it was, I see it as sort of a glass half full thing because the Dolphins did win.
Oh, jeez. Of course they did.
Too soon?
Too soon. 40-something years later. But now, who would want to fucking kill John Lennon?
The guy's name was Mark David Chapman, and apparently his father was a staff sergeant in the Air Force and his mother was a nurse. And he had one of those typical rough upbringings. As a kid, he was bullied in school. His father was physically abusive toward his mom, and I guess he didn't show him any love. So by the time he was 14, he was already a mess, doing drugs, skipping school. But then after an acid trip in 1971, he saw Jesus and became born again.
As one do.
As one do.
As one do. As one does.
Yeah, what is it with Jesus and acid?
See, that's my problem. I've never done acid.
Oh, that could be your problem.
Yeah, definitely my problem.
So we know the guy had these problems, but why Lennon?
Well, evidently, when the cops got to him and asked him, why did you do it? He said he'd become John Lennon or he'd become Holden Caulfield.
Right. And just to break in for one sec, Holden Caulfield, for those of you who haven't read Catcher in the Rye, he's the protagonist. He's a 16-year-old kid who narrates the book.
Yeah, here's Chapman explaining himself why he killed John Lennon.
It is my sincere belief that I killed John Lennon to get as many people as possible to read The Catcher in the Rye.
Why did you kill John Lennon?
I thought by killing him, I would acquire his fame.
Here's what I say about John Lennon. All you need is love. Have you ever heard that? Well, this is what I say to that. All you need is love and $250 million. He was the biggest, phoniest bastard that ever lived. I wasn't about to let the world endure 10 more years of his menagerie of bullshit.
So according to his first girlfriend, Jessica Blankenship, there was another reason.
I was 16, and I was at a retreat with my church. Someone had invited him to come, and I guess I was smitten. He was an excellent guitar player.
Another failed musician.
Here we go on musicians. We're not giving them a break, are we?
No, you don't deserve one.
He particularly loved the Beatles until John Lennon said that they were more popular than Jesus Christ.
What she's referring to is Maureen Cleave, a reporter and friend of John Lennon, who wrote the article that published Lennon's quote, "We are more popular than Jesus now." It wasn't a big deal in the UK at the time, where the term Christianity was associated with the Church of England. But the quote caused media frenzy in the United States after the American press picked it up a few months later.
You know, the Beatles are more popular than Christ? When I was talking about it, it was very close and intimate with this person that I know who happens to be a reporter. And I was using expressions on things that I just read and derived about Christianity. Only I was saying it in the simplest form that I know, which is the natural way I talk. They're more popular than Jesus and so and so and so and so. But she took them, and people that know me took them exactly as it was, because they know that's how I talk, you know.
But, of course, Mark David Chapman had to go and take that however he took it.
Yeah, a bit of overreaction. I wonder if we could go back and find out between, let's say, 1964 and 1970, how many records the Beatles sold as opposed to how many Bibles were sold. I mean,
well,
plus,
it's not really fair.
Yeah, and plus Bibles are given away. They put them in every fucking hotel room in the country.
Yeah, we were talking about before about how many people read the Bible versus how many people listen. The Bibles they went out and bought versus the Beatles records they went out and bought. Yeah, it's not much of a contest.
Yeah, it's like 20% of people that actually bought the Bible actually read it.
Yeah, and about 100% of people who bought the records. Yeah,
they would definitely listen to those records.
There was some kind of statistic, I don't know where I saw it, or maybe I made it up, that it's the most purchased but least read book, which is not hard to believe.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if the Beatles were like the first big brand, you know, as far as merchandise. Like they would,
I guess so.
They would have been like big influencers back then.
Influencers, yeah, it's funny. I guess, yeah, because there weren't like bobbleheads of Paul Revere and the Raiders.
No. There might have been some Elvis stuff, but the Beatles thing went way over the top.
Yeah, there was no Stone stuff. There was no, yeah, that's true. That's true.
And how many Grammys do you think Jesus was nominated for? And the Beatles are nominated for a Grammy this year,
I know,
2025.
Absolutely unbelievable. But, you know, Chapman wasn't the only lunatic with his sights set on Lennon.
So one of the other lunatics that had it out for John Lennon was J. Edgar Hoover. In 1924, he became the FBI's first director and stayed there until his death in 1972. It was founded by Teddy Roosevelt in 1908, but Hoover was the guy who made the FBI what it is today.
And he hated the civil rights movement. In fact, the ACLU was formed as a response to the guy. He called Martin Luther King Jr. the most dangerous Negro in America. Nice.
Wow.
Yeah, he kept track of actors and writers. You know, he thought Hollywood was, this is pre-McCarthy. He thought Hollywood was this big subversive den of inequity. Apparently, he collected confidential personal information on everyone from presidents and congressmen to even civilians, which is what brings us to Lennon.
And so the FBI was wiretapping?
Like no,
they don't. Like they don't do that now.
No.
So evidently, the FBI found hundreds of pages from Nixon, who was president at the time, to Hoover to follow and monitor Lennon. Nixon called it the Lennon problem.
I know the difference between the phone being normal when I pick it up and when every time I pick it up there's a lot of noises, you know. And I'd open the door and there'd be guys standing on the other side of the street. I'd get in the car and they'd be following me. Suddenly I realized this was serious, you know. They were coming for me one way or the other.
The clip you just heard is from a great documentary called The U.S. versus John Lennon, and it's about just that. It's amazing. You should check it out.
Yeah, I saw it. It's actually pretty good.
Yeah. I remember a lot of this stuff from when I was a kid, because he was, you know, I was born in the middle of the last century. But he was always president. And he one of the things, you know, there was all these rumors about him, like he wore a dress and all that stuff.
Cross-dresser.
Yeah. But I'm sure this is true. He supposedly had what might have been the world's largest collection of pornography.
Hoover porn.
Yeah. He called it the obscene file. And he had nude photos and X-rated movies of celebrities and politicians.
Yeah, there was rumors he had pictures of Eleanor Roosevelt that he got from W.C. Fields.
Really? I have nude pictures of Eleanor Roosevelt, but I didn't get them. That's not.
I have nude pictures of W.C. Fields.
Well,
you can't make this shit up.
No. I mean, well, somebody might have made. No, it happened.
We choose to believe that these are not rumors.
Correct. The best of the rumors is that he was in a romantic relationship with his deputy. There was this guy named Clyde Tolson who was his constant companion.
Hoover's Hoover.
That's great. Yeah, so neither of these guys were ever married. They went out to eat together all the time. They went on vacations together. And they even have matchy-matchy burial plots.
I wonder where those are.
Oh, that's a good
We should
question.
look that up. If anybody knows where those are, let us know.
Anyway, these are just rumors, and clearly that the rumors that he was gay were only based on them not being rumors.
Oh, what a piece of work that guy was. Okay, so let's get back to the topic of this week's podcast, Catcher in the Rye.
Catcher in the Rye was written by J.D. Salinger, and it's a classic of 20th century American literature. For some reason, this thing has engendered more controversy than you can imagine. At one point, I think it might have been in the 40s to the 50s or 50s to the 60s, it was the most banned book in the entire country. And we'll get into some of the reasons for that in a minute. But it's a deceptively simple story that is narrated by a 16-year-old kid named Holden Caulfield. It's just 2 days in the life of this kid between him getting expelled from another prep school and the time he goes to face his parents at home. And there's been tons written about it, but from our perspective, what's interesting is that unlike the crazies it's inspired, Holden is just this gentle soul who's confused and troubled by the phoniness of the adult world. He doesn't want to grow up. He's afraid of becoming like the ambitious, fake people he's surrounded by. And even the title is a reference to wanting to protect the innocence of childhood. It's a long story, so we won't get into it, but the catcher refers to his wanting to catch children before they fall off the cliff of innocence into the hardships of adulthood. But we don't want to spoil the ending, and we just want to encourage you to read it and see for yourselves what all the fuss is about. And you can make your own guess about why it's been connected to so much violence and insanity, but we can't figure it out.
What year abouts was it banned, It's like right after it came out or a few years later?
It was pretty soon. I don't know exactly what year it started, but I think he wrote it in 49. It came out in 51.
51, yeah.
Yeah, and by the end of the 50s, it had already started to be this controversial banned book.
Right. No, banning books now, aren't we? Or not we.
Oh, this book, I mean, what's really crazy is that Catcher became this sort of classic of teen literature for a while, and now it's back on the shit list.
Yeah, I remember my daughter had to read it.
Yeah. Did she like it?
Yeah, she loved it.
Yeah.
So we found a list online that has a few topics in Catcher that have caused controversies over the years and bans. It was in alphabetical order, happened to be, wasn't it?
Yep.
Let's go down this list. Ableism, alcohol.
Yeah, let's just stop. I don't even know what they're referring to with the ableism, but alcohol it's a 16-year-old kid who drinks.
Yeah, we all did.
He's not an alcoholic. He doesn't drink something and go kill anybody.
Right. Well, here's a few more. We have blasphemy, drugs, homosexuality.
Yeah, the blasphemy is that he says "God damn" instead of "damn" a bunch. It's just something he does. What was another one?
Homosexuality.
Yeah. Again, there's nothing dark about it. He's not anti-gay or homophobic or anything. He's just a kid who describes the gay people who he encounters, and there's nothing derogatory in there.
Drugs was the other one.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Don't remember any drugs.
We got misogyny, pedophilia, prostitution.
Okay, misogyny, no. He says some bad things about girls who he's having problems with, but it's not misogynist.
Right.
He's just mad at these girls. Prostitution, there is prostitution. There's one scene in the book. He calls a prostitute, or he gets a prostitute sent to his hotel room, but it's more out of loneliness than anything else, and there's no sex. There's nothing dark about it. It's more of just adding depth and shading to what he's going through at the time. What was the other one before prostitution?
Pedophilia.
Yeah. Again,
Just got to read the book.
Yeah, I mean, the pedophilia is that he has a teacher whose house he goes to when he's he doesn't have anywhere to stay for this one night, so he goes to stay there, and the teacher creeps on him a little bit, which is, it's creepy, but then he leaves. It's
right. And last three on this list are rebellion, racism, and suicide.
Right. So rebellion, yeah.
We all were rebellious when we were teenagers.
And it's less rebellion than being lost.
Right.
And then, what were the other? What was the night?
Racism.
Yeah, don't know what they're talking about there.
And suicide.
Again, he's depressed, but it's not like what they call today suicidal ideation.
Right.
It's not about that. It's not. Yeah. And that's why people should really read books for themselves before they.
Sounds like America to me.
It sounds like a pretty good time to me. Well, maybe four of them, but I'm not saying which ones.
Yeah.
So that list sounds pretty terrible. But again, before you jump to any conclusions, you should read it for yourself and see if those things are not only different in context, but really whether or not you even see them in the book. If you're old enough, do you remember where you were the night John Lennon was assassinated?
We'd love to hear from you, so please email us at tabootreasures@evocreative.com or message us at Taboo Treasures on Instagram and the TikTok. So Mark David Chapman wasn't the only lunatic or crazy killer to be associated with Catcher in the Rye. We talked about Charles Manson in our first episode, as well as Jim Jones, the original drinker of the Kool-Aid.
Yep, there were two guys called John Allen Muhammad and Lee Boyd Malvo.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Kann du Norsk?
If you used Babbel, you would. Babbel's conversation-based techniques teaches you useful words and phrases to get you speaking quickly about the things you actually talk about in the real world, with lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts and voiced by real native speakers. Babbel is like having a private tutor in your pocket. Start speaking with Babbel today. Get up to 55% off your Babbel subscription right now at babbel.com/Spotify. Spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic, famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere, nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. Goldbelly ships Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garden's famous cakes. So, if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT. That's goldbelly.com, promo code GIFT.
Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
Who became known as the Beltway Snipers. And they were just what they sounded like. They would pick off innocent victims from a distance in October 2002, mostly in the D.C. and Virginia areas. And eventually they killed 17 people before they got caught.
There's serial killer Ted Bundy, who admitted to kidnapping, raping, and murdering 30 young women and girls during the 1970s. But authorities suspect the number could be as high as 100.
And of course, the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski. Between 78 and 95, he mailed at least 16 package bombs to innocent people. He killed 3 of them and injured 23 others. And these things were really sophisticated. He really knew what he was doing, and he was getting away with it for all these years until his brother actually turned him in eventually. And all of this was in the name of, anti-government beliefs.
There's Albert DeSalvo, who who killed 13 single women between the ages of 19 and 85 in the Boston area, hence the name the Boston Strangler. Most of these women were sexually assaulted in their apartment before being strangled with articles of their own clothing. But the most recent connection to Catcher in the Rye was in 2002.
Yeah, a guy named Robert John Bardo stalked and killed a young actress named Rebecca Schaefer in Hollywood. The cops found a copy of Catcher on him when he killed her, but he said it had no connection to him emulating Mark David Chapman. Then, of course, years later, in a prison interview, Chapman himself claimed that he'd gotten letters from Bardo asking him about what life was like in prison.
And the Zodiac Killer, what's his name? Arthur Lee
Allen.
Arthur Lee Allen. They just
think, yeah.
kind of figured out that was him, right?
Yeah, but they're not sure.
Right, yeah. But we saw that documentary. I'm pretty sure it's him.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't that inspire some movies?
Yeah, there was a movie called Zodiac that Fincher did, and a lot of people don't know this, but the original Dirty Harry was actually
right
about the Zodiac.
You think he said, "Make my day"
to the Zodiac Killer? But what would any episode of Taboo Treasures be without a conspiracy theory? There are tons of them that present a much darker side to all this, actually, that involve the highest levels of government.
Yeah, there was even a book called The Catcher in the Rye Enigma that explores the idea that there are assassin codes hidden in it.
Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable. Wow. These guys say that the CIA hired J.D. Salinger to write Catcher in the Rye and put codes in it that would trigger But what's interesting is that what isn't a controversy, or rather a conspiracy, is the MK Ultra mind control thing that the CIA ran from 53 to 64. There were, it was 9 years of dosing unsuspecting soldiers and even civilians. It was pretty bad.
With acid, right?
Yeah, and other drugs.
Some people believe the CIA forced assassins to read Catcher over and over, repeatedly, to embed it in their minds.
Yeah.
Sounds like a movie, doesn't it?
It doesn't really make much sense. I mean, the book is just not, well, I hope people read it. But yeah, there was a movie called The Manchurian Candidate that was remade a few years ago.
Yeah, with, Denzel Washington.
Yeah.
Who was in the first one again?
Lawrence Harvey, Frank Sinatra. It's an unbelievable movie.
Sinatra, yeah.
We don't have time to get into it, but if you see it, it relates closely to this. It's about triggering an assassin, through mind control.
Yeah, I guess the original film came out in 1962. It was a year or so before JFK's assassination. But its conspiracy themes were so spooky that they pulled it from release right after he was killed in 1963.
That leads us to the Kennedy assassination and Lee Harvey Oswald. One of the most persistent conspiracy theories is that he was a CIA patsy and that somehow they'd hypnotized him to commit the assassination.
New details tonight on the 1963 assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy in Dallas. Researchers say they have found proof the alleged assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald, was involved in a CIA operation 3 months before the assassination. Today, JFK assassination expert Jefferson Morley told reporters his legal team has documentation of the still classified covert operation approved by senior CIA officials. The agency apparently used Oswald for intelligence weeks before the shooting.
They found a copy of Catcher in his apartment, and they say, the conspiracy theorists say, that he was activated by the triggers in it.
So 2 days after the assassination of John Kennedy...
He's been shot. He's been shot. Lee Oswald has been shot. There's a man with a gun. Absolute panic. Absolute panic here in the basement of Dallas Police Headquarters. Detectives have their guns drawn. There is no question about it. Oswald has been shot at point-blank range, fired into his stomach.
Was that the man that shot the man, or do you know?
That is the man that shot the man.
Jack Ruby shot and killed Oswald live on TV for the whole world to see. I mean, he wasn't trying to hide what he was doing, and there was rumors that he might have had some ties to the mob and he owed some money, or if he was sick and he would die in prison. But Other people suggest that he was brainwashed by the same people that killed Kennedy to literally bury the secret.
And then a few years later, Robert Kennedy, his brother, was killed in '68. And the whole thing with Sirhan's really weird. They said that he was also an unwitting assassin who was triggered by the book. And what's very strange is that in the days following the assassination, he claimed to have been disoriented that night. He's having lapses in his memory, that he was floating in and out of consciousness. So that's where these rumors get traction.
What do you remember about the shooting, if you're willing to talk about that?
I was there, but I don't remember the exact moment. I don't remember pulling my gun out of my body or whatever it was located, and I don't remember aiming at any human being. I don't remember any of that, Mr. President. And I've said that from the get-go. Everything was always hazy in my head about that.
Also in 1968, Martin Luther King was assassinated by James Earl Ray. That takes us back to Hoover and the FBI. We know Hoover had MLK followed and had put together a file on him. And supposedly James Earl Ray was another fall guy who was triggered by the book. But there's one person that we haven't talked about that's associated with Catcher in the Rye and John Lennon.
Ronald Reagan was 2 months into his presidency when John Hinckley Jr. drew a $29 handgun outside the Washington Hilton Hotel on March 30th, 1981.
John Hinckley Jr. shot and wounded Ronald Reagan just a few months after Chapman killed Lennon. In fact, there was a rumor about Hinckley that he had actually been at one of the Lennon memorials with a copy of Catcher in the Rye, which is pretty creepy, but there was definitely a copy found in his hotel room after they arrested him.
Yeah, so he did this to impress Jodie Foster.
Yeah, I tried to impress her that year, but I couldn't come up with anything that good.
I didn't know how freaked out she was.
She still, she won't talk about it.
Yeah, I was reading. She won't do Broadway anymore, live plays, because she's afraid.
Yeah, I didn't know that until recently. Yeah, and
freaked her out.
Yeah, she'll walk out of an interview if you bring it up. Poor thing. Can you imagine? Jesus.
I guess he didn't get a date. So we've talked about John Lennon's murder, but we didn't talk about much of what happened that day and leading up to the event. Evidently, Mark David Chapman was at the Dakota earlier that afternoon and asked John Lennon for his autograph on a copy of Double Fantasy, which had just been released back in October. From Mark David Chapman's own words, he said John was very patient with him, gave him the autograph, and asked him if he needed anything else.
It's so creepy. And then, for whatever reason, he just dumped the thing in a planter outside the Dakota, just left it there, and a fan picked it up and later turned it into the police. So after the trial, or after he pled guilty, I guess, the police gave it back to him. And then...
That's nice of them.
Yeah, really. So nothing happened. We never heard about anything after that until 99, right?
Yeah, Jack Douglas, who I can call a friend and actually worked with, produced the album Double Fantasy and evidently bought it, which I had no idea. That was back in 1999, right?
Yeah, and then the trail kind of goes cold. I guess he sold it, but we don't really know when or who the buyer was. And the next time it turns up, I guess it's sold for $850,000 to someone at some point. But the next time we can actually locate it was in 2015 when it turned up in a Beatles memorabilia collectible exhibition in Canada.
Right.
And yeah, that was it. Then I guess they sold it for $1.5 million to a private collector, and from there the trail goes completely cold.
So that's enough about records. Let's talk a little bit about J.D. Salinger.
Yeah, he was born in 1919, New York City, and in 1942, when he was about 23 years old, he got drafted into the Army. And it's amazing. He actually, I never knew this until we started working on this podcast, but he was actually at the Battle of the Bulge and was part of the D-Day landing at Normandy, which is unbelievable.
So the conspiracy connection comes from his work with a covert arm of the military called the CIC. And what's especially interesting about that is he kept working for the CIC after he got out of the Army, which, to be fair, is kind of weird.
It really is, yeah. So anyway, that's when he became a writer in earnest, and he published something like 38 books. And one of the themes that you find running through a lot of them is childhood and children. Holden is a disillusioned 16-year-old kid who gets thrown out of a Manhattan prep school and doesn't trust adulthood. J.D. Salinger got thrown out of prep schools. J.D. Salinger was sort of a bad student and a disillusioned kid.
And yeah, and Catcher was actually his first published work. I mean, I read he hated the attention, so after it came out in the early 50s, he just left, moved to a small town in New Hampshire. He kept writing.
Yeah, he kept writing, but by 65, he'd pretty much stopped publishing. In between no more books coming out and the fact that nobody really knew, he was this recluse. So he became an enigma, and now all of a sudden he's interesting for a whole new reason.
Yeah, there was a bunch of stars dating back to Jimmy Stewart and Marlon Brando, and most recently DiCaprio and some others that wanted to be in his biopic, but it never happened because he wouldn't give the rights up, kind of like Stallone didn't want to give up the rights to Rocky unless he could be Rocky.
Yeah, except for that even if Salinger had played Holden Caulfield when the book first came out, he would have been in his 30s.
Wow. Not exactly the same thing. No. Some rare books can be worth millions. Usually they're super rare historical text like the works of Shakespeare, Da Vinci, and the Gutenberg Bibles.
A lot of people don't know that Steve Gutenberg was actually that old.
He was in Police Academy, like every one of them, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, that actually goes back to around the 16th century, right? And some of more contemporary books, especially first editions, are also pretty sought after for a range of factors like rarity, signatures, limited editions, and so on.
Yeah, like a first edition Harry Potter signed by J.K. Rowling could go for up to $15,000, or a first edition Handmaid's Tale is worth around $3,500.
And the value skyrockets with more significant authors like Hemingway, of course. A copy of In Our Time that he inscribed to his publisher sold for about $275,000.
And by comparison, depending on condition and all that, you can usually get a pretty collectible Catcher in the Rye from anywhere from $6,000 to $25,000.
Although a company called Whitmore Rare Books did have a mint first edition on its site for $55,000, and we saw a signed first edition on eBay this week for almost $100,000.
And that brings us to one particular copy of Catcher in the Rye. There was a rumor that in 1999, a prison guard sold it to R.R. Auction House in New Hampshire. Jeff called them to see what he could find out.
Yeah, and sure enough, they confirmed that they did buy it from a prison guard in '99. So then they sold it again in 2007, and they wouldn't tell me who they sold it to, naturally enough. But yeah, so that's it. As far as we know, it's in the hands of whoever bought it in 2007. But they were willing to tell me what they got for it, and it's just mind-blowing. $870.
It wasn't a first edition, but it was signed, just not by its author, and it's the only one in existence.
The one Mark David Chapman was reading that night outside the Dakota apartments while he was calmly waiting for the police to arrive after he'd shot John Lennon. The one he inscribed, "This is my statement," and signed Holden Caulfield.
Nobody's ever given peace a complete chance. Gandhi tried it, Martin Luther King tried it, but they were shot.
Thanks for listening, and please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts so we don't have to pawn the heavenly sneakers. And hit that like button.
So that does it for this week's episode of Taboo Treasures. If you have any information that we missed, please reach out to us at Taboo Treasures at evocreative.com or Taboo Treasures on Instagram and TikTok. From EVO, Taboo Treasures is produced by Bruce Whitkin and Jeff Levine. Executive producer Brandon Morgan. Music by the Lonely Bulls.